About 10 minutes have passed since Arquade dragged me out of her posh apartment complex and flew off toward the city. We're now perched on top of a high-rise building, as though it were a perfectly ordinary place for people to be.
ここが一番ね。下の様子がよくわかるでしょ?
As she speaks, Arquade releases me from her grasp. I stutter a complaint as I sink to the ground. I thought nothing Arquade did could surprise me anymore, but I never would have imagined that she'd pick me up in her arms and bound up the side of a building like some sort of rabbit.
見晴らしのいい場所なんて言わなきゃよかった。
I calm my frantically racing heart. Taking a deep breath, I power through the dizziness brought on by the sudden change in atmospheric pressure.
けど確かにここなら公園を一望できる。次は事前に言ってくれればこっちも準備が。アルクエイド。
Don't mind her just watching. Arquade is standing at the edge of the roof, gazing down at the city. Even from behind, I can sense an indescribable hostility coming from her. The situation has taken a turn for the worse. A white mist has pulled into the depression left by the sinkhole. The chill can be felt even way up here on the rooftop. Despite the extent of this incredible phenomenon, the entire area is dead silent. Civilians are being kept away by the new traffic restrictions. Police and the fire service have been dispatched, but none of them even approached the site of the collapse. The park has collapsed and become a sea of rubble. The bowl of the crater, rough and pitted like an earthenware mortar, has been pierced by a countless number of blades. Yep, seems like work has already been done here. Looking like unlimited blade works, a little bit. They're the same western side blades that Senpai had thrown earlier. Each of the blades, there must have been 100 of them in total, have been firmly driven into the ground.
100本単位の黒剣による結界。そう。四季の言う大校舎ってあいつなわけ。
アルクエイド。
オドだけで作られた疑似的なテンプル。波の使徒なら閉じ込めておくどころか、あれだけで潰されておしまいでしょうけど。
Her voice is laced with deep-seated anger and disgust. It almost seems like the same petty feeling of irritation and anger that humans carry in their everyday lives.
あれでブローブを閉じ込めているのか。でも
Almost all of the blades have been frozen over. And on top of that, the air is abnormally cold. It's almost as if...
いいえ、まだブローブは封印中。ほら、そろそろもやが晴れるわ。
Whoa. The white wall disappears. As it recedes, a gigantic rectangular box comes into view amidst the debris. It almost looks like a massive block of ice.
なんだあれ。あんなのさっきはなかったぞ。
檻を作ってから1時間ってところかしら。急増の準備にしてはあがくじゃない、あいつ。
In front of the huge box is a familiar figure. It's Noel-sensei clutching her halberd. She's restlessly pacing to and fro in front of the box, sometimes moving farther away from it only to loop back around to do it again. It seems like she is at her wit's end, as though she's literally spiraling into madness.
先輩がいない。
This is bad. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I can tell at a glance that this is already a situation we can't back away from.
アルクエイド、降りよう。あれもう始まってるよな。
Resisting the urge to dash off immediately, I call out to Arquade. Not that she needs me to tell her, of course. She's already processed everything that's happening down below, and so she...
私、いや。
Huh? She will say, I don't want it! Pouting, she turns away like an uncooperative child throwing a tantrum.
嫌ってなんだよ。 代行者がいてもいいって言ったじゃないか。
嫌なものは嫌なの。代行者なんてヤブカみたいなものだけど、あれだけは別。あいつに手を貸すぐらいなら太陽を抱いて眠ってもいいぐらい。
In other words, she'd rather die. I instinctively understood the metaphor she used, but I'm only getting more and more confused.
あいつってシエル先輩を知ってるのかお前。
その名前口にしないで。あとシキはここにいて。あれもうすぐ自滅するから。あの箱が壊れたらこの辺りは氷漬けよ。私のそばにいないとシキも死んじゃうからね。
Senpai, self-destruct? Hold on, what's going to happen if that box is destroyed?
この辺りってどの辺りまで。
この町全部じゃない？具体的に言うと半径10キロぐらい。でも絶対に手は貸さないから、私。
Arkway won't even look me in the eye.
絶対って今さら何言ってんだよ。お前な、先輩がそんなに嫌いなのか、恨みでもあるのか。いや、あるんだな、あるんだろうよ。でもそれとこれは関係ないだろう。今殺すべきはブローブなんだから。
だからあいつなんてどうでもいいの。どうでもいいからどうでもいいの。ええ、殺すべきはブローブの方よ。今から行けば楽に殺せるわよ。でも行かない。どうでもいいやつがいるから。あいつがどうでもよくなるまで私は何もしませんからねーった。
Jesus. Like, obviously, like, they have beef, right? But, like, is it really that deep? Like, goddamn. Idiot. We have an idiot here. I have absolutely no idea what their relationship is, but she's seriously adamant about not fighting Vlav so long as Ciel Senpai is there.
だいたいこうなったのもあなたたちの自業自得じゃない。ブローブ一人を止められないようじゃこんなちっぽけな集まりいつ崩壊してもおかしくないんだし。弱い生き物は弱い生き物らしくおとなしく全滅するのが自然の摂理よ。
Her words interrupt my thoroughly confused train of thought. In a sense, you could say that they calm me down.
バカ野郎、そこまで分かっていて助けに行かないのか。行かないんだな。人間なんてどうでもいいんだな。やっぱり吸血鬼なんだな、この分からずや。
はあ、シキの方こそここまで言ってあげたのにわからないの。私が手を貸すのはシキのた。
もういい、勝手にしろこのわがまま女。バカバカ。
Damn. Cursing her, I run for the exit. Arcwade's totally useless. Now that it's come to this, I need to make my way down there using my own two legs and figure out what on earth is going on. I cut the lock on the door to the rooftop with my knife. However, I can't spot anything that looks like an elevator on the top floor. Shit. I dash down the stairs, relying on the emergency lights. Even though I'm about to descend into the midst of that cold, into the very heart of the vampire's cruel dominion, fear has taken a back seat in my mind. The reason is obvious. Right now I feel frustration, sadness, and anger instead. I can't believe her. Who's supposed to just accept their annihilation? I misunderstood her so badly I could almost scream. So that's the kind of person she is. It's not like she's foolish or evil. She simply isn't human and operates on a fundamentally different set of values to the rest of us. I'm the fool here for expecting her to act the same way a human would.
それでも期待したくて仕方がなかったんだよ。くそ。
Wasn't she the one who forgave Tonoshiki, her murderer? I want to think of her as someone special. In spite of everything, I simply can't bring myself to hate her, and her unbelievably pure and genuine smile. All I wanted was to keep believing, as fervently as I could, that she's a good person. But But that's in the past now. This isn't the time to be wallowing in sentimentality. I'm going to get down to the ground level as fast as I possibly can. I'm going to make sure that Ciel-senpai is safe. And then, after that, I'm going to cut Valve's lines. I finally reached the elevator. I rush inside and press the button for the first floor. There's no more time for hesitation. There was never any time to hesitate in the first place. I take a deep breath, I get myself a once-over, no issues. My entire body is functioning properly. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm not afraid. I won't hesitate to kill those things that look like humans. I rid myself on that naivete down to the underground tunnels. My breathing quickens. My heart is racing. It's pounding so frequently that it's as though it isn't even part of my own body. I arrive at the first floor. I can't rely on Arcoid. Adjusting my grip on the knife, I run toward the crater filled with swirling cold air. And here we are. A gigantic cube-shaped hole in the world. That's my first impression of the bizarre object in front of me. A transparent box over 40 meters on each side. Whatever it's made of has an acrylic-like quality. Its bluish-black appearance doesn't seem to stem from the color of the walls themselves, but from whatever is trapped inside. White pebbles fly about wildly inside the box. Icicles are arranged in rows like the fangs of some great beast. Inside of that box is a bitterly cold hellscape that defies human comprehension. That thing isn't a box at all. It's a cage. Something that shouldn't exist in this world. A cage built to imprison a creature that cannot be allowed to roam free on the surface. Inside it is...
Senpai!
Yeah, they fighting in there. A literal cage match, if you will. She's there. Ciel-senpai's in there. In the midst of that intense cold, where even one's breath is frozen solid, she's been fighting against that vampire all on her own. The intense cold approaches a negative 100 degrees Celsius, a cryogenic temperature that could never occur naturally on the surface of this planet. Whoa. Within that cold so intense that no plant or animal could survive, two nightly figures clash with one another. The first knight is the source of this curse, Vlav Archangel. Yeah, she got the armor too, and it's red? That's cool. The other is a young female executor clad in a suit of armor, an instrument of torture. That's not the power Ciel I've seen before. Their field of vision is hemmed in by the blizzard. They struggle to keep their footing atop the frozen glacier. Under these extreme conditions, where even breathing could spell death, bullets go head-to-head against flying shards of ice. It's been an hour since their battle began. That it's lasted this long is already a miracle in itself. Ooh, look at that. That is badass. A catapult scattering showers of .30 caliber sparks. The high caliber shells being fired at the vampire are the sort that would be considered overkill on any ordinary battlefield. Their destructive power is nothing like the 8mm or 9mm rounds designed to merely wound and incapacitate soldiers. This is a modern anti-vampire weapon made for the purpose of blowing away flesh and steel. Its name is Death by Immolation Blaze. One excerpt from the scripture that holds the 7 causes of death, Executor Ciel's personal mystic code. However, even though this rain of bullets would be enough to turn a run-of-the-mill dead apostle, the kind whose lives are measured simply in decades, into mincemeat, not a single one of them even reaches that vampire. Her bullets are met by the cold. Her modern weaponry is answered by the fury of the planet, nature. Their armaments perfectly embodied the conflict between civilization and nature. Oh, he got the big sword too. The vampire doesn't move. This unbearable cold is a hell conjured by his own delusions. The delusion that, without blood, one freezes to death. It is the same curse that made Vlad Archangel into the undying being he is now. But because that curse binds him to this cold, in his frozen state he is unable to advance from where he stands. Until he can obtain the warmth of blood, he is nothing more than a poison that stains the earth. That being said, even though his curse is large enough to encompass a city, it isn't capable of bringing forth this intense cold. The Executor is the one responsible for that. This is the result of compressing a vampiric curse that extends for over 4 kilometers in every direction down to the size of a box 40 meters on a side, and sealing it shut. In a sense, it could be said that this barrier is the body of the Executor herself. It's no different to her taking the full force of a billowing cold that assaults the city all on her own. The cold that assails her doesn't bottom out at a negative 100 degrees Celsius. The localized drop in temperatures has dipped all the way down to negative 273 degrees Celsius, absolute zero. A torrential curse, in the face of which anything would ordinarily be frozen instantly. The girl's defense against that curse is the instrument of torture, forged from lead and iron, that's tightly secured to her body. Look at that. That's like it kind of reminds me of like the one skin that Pirate Mythra have in Smash Ultimate. Kind of has that same color scheme and stuff. The iron armor creaks. Just as the vampire's corruption bends the laws of physics, so too is his armor woven from concepts that exist outside of those laws. It was once a coffin referred to as an Iron Maiden, an instrument of death that pierces the person inside with countless spikes. If you want to prove your innocence, then place yourself inside. If you survive, it means you're a witch. If you die, it means you are human. It was the product of the Dark Ages, a symbol of terror that claimed an untold number of lives on a basis of that saying. But do not grieve, for the result is the same for all. Whether witch or human, the chosen will never again know freedom until the release of death. Those encased in this coffin could only attain freedom through their own death. As soon as the victim became the target of this failed delusion, they were trapped inside it until they died. A cursed iron dress. A conceptual weapon designed expressly to torment the victim. However, she instead uses the characteristic to her own advantage. The wearer cannot break free until they are already dead. And so, by extension, the wearer cannot be broken free until they are already dead. This is the meaning of that property. Interesting. No external forces can break through this armor. It is a coffin that can only be opened by the slow and agonizing death of its inhabitants. This extreme cold is no exception to that rule. Even the harshest environment has no choice but to bow its head in the face of this protection, for there is no greater torment than the one contained within. It is for this reason that this instrument of torture bears the name Proof of Purity, Virgin Pain. A mystic code rooted in death either from emancipation or by torture. As long as the user still has magical energy left in them, as long as they have yet to die and be revealed as a witch, the purity, protection of the Holy Maiden will guarantee that their vital functions continue to operate. Huh.
凄まじいオドの消費だ。不死身という点で言えば使徒以上だな、女。
A voice echoes within the white oblivion. The vampire, who has been silent ever since he appeared on the surface, seems to have finally opened his eyes, not because of his irritation at the cold, but because of the tenacity of the woman who opposes him.
だが、そ それにも限度がある。仮に貴様が無限に死に続けられるとしても、戦いは相手を殺さねば収まる。
Uh-oh. As a vampire says, one cannot win with defense alone. Faced with an enemy who could be considered the embodiment of the brutality of nature, a mere human such as her doesn't stand a chance of victory. Because every single thing around her, in all directions, is a weapon bent on killing her. A deluge of icy spears pummels her body. The firearm in her hand is sent flying. The weapon designed to take out her immobile opponent is now stuck into the ground like a tombstone.
さて、唯一の武器を落とした大公者。
He speaks as though the outcome of the fight has just been decided.
拾いに走るがいい。その背中を俺の槍が打ち砕く。
That smile is devious, bro. The vampire also understands what it is that makes the Executor's armor special. And he understands that to destroy it, an even stronger concept, an even stronger curse is needed. The curse of extreme cold is nothing more than a physiological manifestation of his. Like the air he exhales, it's something he spews out simply by being alive. Something like that won't be enough to shatter her armor. Since it's protected by the concept of indestructibility, the only way to nullify it is to strike it with the inverse of that concept. This too is fate. In his hands, the vampire holds the knightly lance bestowed upon him by the suzerain, a lance before which none can remain unshattered. In truth, Vav is wounded. He can't afford to waste the energy on futile attacks. To ensure that his killing blow lands, he knocked away his opponent's weapon.
よく言いましたね。動けぬかかしの分際で。
But the Executor doesn't look back to her fallen firearm. It may be her main weapon, but losing it doesn't pose a problem. In fact, she'd already been weighing up when to swap it out. She knew that her assault rifle, with all its mechanical moving pieces, would eventually succumb to the cold and start to malfunction. Her true weapon of choice is the mystic code she's about to call on now. Is it what I think it is? I mean, like, the color scheme of the armor kind of reminds me of it, like, now that I think about it. The girl chants to herself. Having evaluated the situation, she's come to the conclusion that she cannot overwhelm him with a firearm. In which case, the time has come to cross blades in close combat. Oh. Yeah. Well, it's not the weapon I was thinking of, but I've definitely seen, like, her use this weapon before. The iron hammer of the Holy Maiden bears its fangs. The armor and the gun aren't the only things the girl has been entrusted with. Death by immolation, Blaze. Death by disease, Sick. Death by hemorrhage, Blade. Death by impact, Break. Death by insanity, Lost. Death by torture, Pain. Death by condemnation, Punish. All told, they are the 7 causes of death bestowed upon man by canon law. Each scripture she possesses is the embodiment of one of these causes, given shape in the form of a weapon. Sick! With a bestial howl, the girl runs through the white hell. Like a raging fire, she releases the heat of the accelerating magical energy that has been accumulating in her body. Plowing her way across the glacier, she closes in on the immobile vampire. The sound of steel humming through the air. In her hand, the girl holds a barbaric cleaver. A whip sword, like a centipede composed of stacked guillotine blades. A gigantic mass built for crushing. It bears the name Death by Hemorrhage, Blade. Damn. It gouges his chest, it severs his arm, it cracks open his skull. The sword of the Executor mercilessly inflicts fatal wounds. But that's not enough to determine the outcome of this fight. A vampire is a monster with an undying body, an injury that's only severe enough to kill can be healed in the blink of an eye. Tavav, a sword that has nothing to it but its weight, is little more than a gentle breeze. At least until now. Warmth stirs within his frozen pupils. Realizing that the lacerations to his chest, arms, and head are still open, the vampire finally comes to his senses. Not out of anger, nor out of hatred. After being frozen for so long, it is joy that finally awakens him.
人間の流儀はどこに置いてきた女。この剣筋は使徒を殺すために使徒が編み出したものではないか。
Without answering, the executor attacks once more with her sword. Ooh. But her fourth blow doesn't land. The vampire's past, long dead from his time spent wandering in the cold, is revived by the ferociousness of the executor's swordplay. The dead apostle, Curse, who up until now had merely stood there listlessly, morphs into the figure of the knight who once felled his lord.
なぜ知っているという顔だな。27層剣僧ベゼ。俺も昔一度だけ教えを受けた。時代を見るに、そうか、お前が最後の門弟か。
The unorthodox weapons clash with each other. Damn, you're really throwing down. In one corner, a lance of ice over 3 meters long, and the other, a variable length whip sword, lifting it into the air and brandishing it at the opponent. That's about all an ordinary human would be able to do, given the weight of those weapons, but these two are manipulating them like they're nothing. Their abilities are well matched, but it's clear who has the advantage. It was the girl's sword that snapped the vampire's back to his senses. However, her movements are only getting weaker as time drags on. From the very beginning of this battle, one side has been suffering from an insurmountable handicap.
いいぞ、剣の腕は互角か貴様が上だ。だが人間であることが災いしたな。この結界、果たしてあと何分持つ。
The vampire's lance whistles through the air. The executor's sword repels it. The sword fight that had long transcended human comprehension shows no sign of stopping. However, the moment of reckoning is fast approaching. The instant the girl's limbs show even the slightest sign of weakness, the knight will summon every ounce of power he has, and use it to run his enemy through with his lance. Oh shit. Going back to Shiki's perspective. The Cage of Cold rumbles, a square world expanding and magnifying. Its transparent walls have started to take on a muddy black color. The deafening roars emanating from within are like those of a creature on the verge of death. Doesn't look like it'll hold on for much longer. Yeah, it's not going to hold on much longer. Even I can see how desperate the situation is.
ノエル先生、
四季君、嘘、本当に来たの？ダメ、上に戻りなさい。シエルさんから部外者が来たら追い返すように言われているの。
今さら戻れません。それよりどうなってるんですかこれ。
どうって見ての通り、土地ごとグローブを封印したんだけど全然効かなかったの。応援は来ないし太陽は沈んじゃうしね。こうなったら逃げてもいい状況だったのに、あの子ったら一人で何とかするとか言い出して。で 出てきたブローブごと大聖堂をこの大きさまで圧縮して中に飛び込んじゃったのよ。それが1時間前の話。
So Ciel Senpai and that vampire really are in there. To sum things up, it sounds like Vlav emerged above ground and started laying waste to his surroundings. Senpai made the snap decision to lock him in that cage, and then entered it herself. I can understand that if not for this cube-shaped thing, the entire city would be engulfed by the blizzard I saw underground. Arcwade also said as much earlier.
けどなんで先輩まで中に閉じ込めたんだから先輩が入る必要はないでしょ。
あるわよ。あの結界はブローブの汚染を抑えるもので、ブローブ本体を抑えるものじゃないわ。誰かが中でブローブを仕留めないといけないの。
じゃあブローブを倒さない限り先輩は出てこないんですか。
そうでも無理27層正面から撃退するなんていくらあの子でも絶対無理。呪いを一人で受け止めてるだけでも嘘みたいな奇跡なのに。
Noel Sensei is in a state of complete panic. She's a lot more familiar with vampires than I am, so if she's this shaken up, then this situation must be the absolute worst case scenario.
くそ。
I stare at the walls of the cube. Even though I can see what's happening inside, the scene playing out beyond that black blizzard is like something from another world. It almost appears as though the inside of this 40-meter box is larger than the crater it occupies. A box where time and space are distorted. Inside it, Senpai is fighting against that monster all on her own.
先輩は出てないのに。
She is heroic and unyielding. She refuses to retreat even a single step, but the blizzard is taking its toll on her. The fact that she's even able to survive and keep moving in that environment is abnormal in itself. If this were a level playing field, if only she didn't have to create this box, if only she didn't have to contain his billowing cold, if only she were able to fight him without having to worry about anyone other than herself, there's no way she'd lose against him. I grit my teeth in frustration. The situation is bleak. Her body has sustained too many wounds. Ciel Senpai isn't able to defeat that vampire on her own anymore. She needs some support, even if it's just one person. No, just one helping hand. Just one extra push. Now I wonder who that's gonna be. I take off my glasses, I stare at the barrier, and then the enemy within. Even though it'd be impossible for me to kill Vlav alone, I could at least become a weapon for her, except... At the tip of the finger I unconsciously extend toward the wall freezes instantly. It's no use. There's no way I can enter that space. Just think about what happens when I got close to Vlav back in the underground chamber. Humans can't function properly in extreme cold. Their blood freezes, their cells become necrotic. But worst of all, their brains flatline. Humans are far too weak to stand up against vampires. And to top it off, I'm already far too late. The shadows inside the blizzard overlap. Armored girl, her movement stalled, now stands in the crosshairs of a lance thrust with tremendous power. Oh god. Like a sinner nailed to a cross, the shadow resembling Senpai is dashed against the wall that seals off their world. Senpai's demise also spells the end for the barrier. Arcway just watching. Oh god, this looks grim. With her collapse, the cathedral disintegrates. Cold freezes over. A billowing cold front traveling at 160 kilometers per hour freezes everything in its path. I catch sight of Senpai swept up in the blast, being tossed about like a piece of trash. I can do nothing but look on.
いや、違う。
No, that's wrong. This isn't over yet. Sure, the area around me is blanketed by sub-zero temperatures, but I'm still warm. I can feel a heat coming not from the surrounding air, but from inside of me, almost like it's protecting me. I open my eyes and look up at the sky.
Aurora Borealis?
The billowing cold didn't reach the city. The icy tempest has been contained within this crater. Arcwade, helping out. And there, atop a skyscraper towering in the distance, her hand outstretched and the look of intense displeasure on her face. It's Arcwade.
あいつ。
I'm so happy that I can't stop myself from cracking a smile. The ground is frozen and the temperature is below negative 40 degrees Celsius. Despite that, I'm still able to breathe. The apparent temperature may yet reach 0 degrees Celsius, but before it does, even a human like me should be able to endure it for a few minutes. I'm sure that this is Arcwade doing the best she can to make concessions. She may not have directly helped Ciel Senpai, but she still kept her promise, even though this is all just to keep Vlop in check. She did it in such a way as to protect the city and all of us.
なら。
Push forward, Shiki. The rest is up to me. I'll save Senpai. I'll kill that bastard right here. I feel that in this situation, the two are synonymous. I look at Ciel Senpai, look at Vlov. Well, obviously, we're gonna save. I think we're gonna focus on Vlov. I think that's the deal. Because, I mean, we are here to kill him, right? So, I feel like Ciel Senpai would kind of be a distraction. Like, at this very moment. Look at Vlov. But, you know, I could be wrong, you know. I'm just going with my gut here. I stare into the heart of the swirling cold air. Amid the remains of the shattered barrier, I spot a pale and sickly face. That attack just now must have taken a lot out of him. He may be a monster, but right now he's gasping for breath like an ordinary human being. Just looking at him pisses me off, but this is a perfect opportunity. He may have blown Senpai away, but if I act fast, I can go help her. I run while keeping an eye on Vlov. Ciel Senpai has been blown all the way to the edge of the crater and is lying on top of one of the higher piles of debris around its perimeter.
先輩しっかりしてくれ先輩
I rush over and call out to her. She's covered in scraps and bruises, but I don't see any significant bleeding. The armor-like object she'd been wearing has come loose, exposing her torso. Her chest, which up until now hasn't so much as twitched, suddenly shudders violently after I called out to her. Thank goodness she's still alive.
聞こえますか苦しいだろうけど起きてシエル先輩
No way you just said that. While I'm checking on Senpai's condition, I catch a sight of Vlov at the corner of my eye. Standing. This is bad. He may only be moving at a snail's pace, but that vampire who hadn't moved from where he stood this entire time is now steadily advancing towards us. The massive lance he used to blow Senpai all the way over here has crumbled. The lance he's holding now is a little smaller than the one he had before. His left arm, which I sliced off back when we were underground, has regenerated. However, he hasn't used it at all since then. He's probably managed to restore it in form only. Functionally, that left arm is still dead. Judging from all that, he can't have much strength left. That must be why he's now forcing himself to march forward, to come and finish off his cornered prey once and for all.
先輩よかった気がついた話は後です早く起きてグローブが来ます
はいありがとうボズってなんでトノくん夢じゃないですよねバカなんですかあなたはなんで本当に来てるんですかあんなに家に帰ってくださいってお願いしたじゃないですか
Still sprawled atop the pile of debris, Senpai stares at me in surprise. She's well within her rights to be angry, but now's not the time.
怒るのは後。ああ、もう引っ張りますよ。いいですね。ってうわ重っ。先輩すげえ重くないですか？
It's our armor.
遠野くんが非力なだけです。平均よりちょっとあるだけです。いいから早く逃げて。あなたは関係ありません。今ならまだ間に合うはずです。
Senpai attempts to worm her way out of my grasp. In response to her admonishment, which comes from a place of concern for my well-being,
逃げれば助かるんですか？
I pose a question that's loaded with all the emotions I have in me. Exactly. It would be a lie to say that I'll be saved if I run away. The choice of running away itself carries it with a responsibility, sacrifice. Besides, even if I were to run away here, I'd just be buying time. Everything will be for naught if we don't take that vampire down right here.
遠野くん、それは。
そうだろう、先輩。逃げても解決しない。戦うしかない。さっきみんなのために先輩がそうしたように。
On that night, she said that I could still be saved. That's why.
本当の意味で助かりたいのなら、怖くてもここであいつを殺さないと。
After all, that's the only thing I can do. Put simply, killing is all I'm capable of. But that's okay. Even if this fight has nothing to do with me atoning for the fact that I'm a murderer, it's okay. Even if this only serves to prove that I'm a bloodthirsty killer, I'll happily get up close and personal with that bastard one more time if it means I can kill the cult that's bearing down on us.
とにかく任せて。一緒にやらせてくれ、先輩。
確かに遠野くんはブローブの腕を切り落としましたけど。いえ、ダメです。だって理由がない。あなたにはそれだけのことをする理由がありません。
She's not talking about my reason to fight. What she needs is a reason to allow herself to exploit me. How virtuous of her. Even in a situation like this, she sees a good-for-nothing like me as someone she needs to protect.
それじゃご褒美をください。あいつをやっつける手助けをしたら。
Shit, I can't even come up with anything that would make a fitting prize for right now. A reward? All I can think about is what's in front of me right now. If I'm being honest, I've been incredibly aroused for a while now. I can't help it. What kind of healthy young man wouldn't get a little hot under the collar when presented with such a voluptuous body? Can you not? Like, we're in a pretty dire situation here. Can you just not be horny? God. What would I like to do with that body? I can think of all sorts of things, but that'd only spoil it. I'd ruin everything. One brief moment of ecstasy, then nothing. Then something more tame, like exchanging emails or a friend request? What am I thinking? That's dumb. I could already do that whenever. How stupid. How absolutely idiotic. But strangely, I find myself smiling. Yes, this is way better than some grandiose request. I mean, I love her. I'm here because I just can't leave her be. That's why even though Vlav is bearing down on us, there's nothing wrong with thinking about what's next for us.
決まった。今度先輩の弁当を分けてください。それで手を打ちます。あ、もちろん手作りで。
はあ？でも私料理なんて1個ぐらいしか作れません。
じゃあそれでとっておきっぽくていいですね。
This isn't some brilliant master plan, nor do I have any clever tricks up my sleeve. I'm gonna guess it's curry. I'm just talking this fast because I know there's not much time left. I tear my eyes away from Senpai and turn to focus on the vampire. From here on, I'll simply use my eyes for her sake. Just as I make up my mind, someone grasps my nervously trembling hand from behind.
先輩。
2つ必ず守ってください。吸血鬼の正面にも立たないで背後に回ることに専念する。
はい。あと一つは。
Don't die?
私のことは何があっても考えないように。 もう言うまでもありませんが、鉄みたいに頑丈ですから。
Okay. Then there was a hint of embarrassment and self-derision in her voice. My giddy emotions are brought back down to earth. I berate myself for having said such things to Senpai. Nodding, I let go of her hand. I already miss her soft touch. I move away from Senpai. I confront the vampire approaching us from across the crater. The massacre at the hotel, the hell of the catacombs. I put a stop to my thoughts, which are trying to dredge up those memories as fuel for upcoming battle to the death. My body will only be able to operate properly for a minute at most. For that minute, I will discard all human emotions. I will leave behind both fear and fervor. From this point on, I'll become a machine that does nothing but see death. Let's do it then. I re-examine him anew. The radiance of his unyielding life is like that of a twinkling star. For the first time, I met his gaze. Vlav is paying attention to me. During the battle underground, he realized that I'm a fragile but venomous threat. As such, he can't afford to ignore me. Maybe now, it would be possible for us to establish a dialogue. I'm suddenly struck by such a hopelessly human sentiment. But there's no need for us to understand one another. I don't even see him as a living being. Similarly, he only sees me as an object. We're on exactly the same page. We already understand each other plenty. I begin to sprint across the mere 40 meters that separate us. Our final tryst will be all too short. 4 seconds, 2 short breaths. The ice spears he fired breezed right past me. It makes perfect sense. Senpai is already exhausted, so he chose to finish her off before he has to contend with my approach. I don't look back. I don't have that luxury. Gritting my teeth, I set foot within his reach. Knife and lance. You can't even compare the range of our weapons. If I want to cut his lines, I'll have to slip past his opening salvo first. A thrust propelled by physical strength far beyond what humans are capable of. There's no way I can evade it. I don't know how, but that guy is no longer the vampire I knew. There's a glint in his eye. His rationality and experience shine through in the point of his lance. He has cast off the torpor that caused him to rely on nothing but overwhelming brute strength. In other words, he's just like me. He is simply a living creature desperately fighting for its own survival. However, his attack, which is about to pierce my heart, is deflected by a blow that comes from behind me. If we're single-function organisms, then she is a cornucopia of talents. Having put my faith in her, I instinctively know, even if you were to stack Vlav and me on top of each other, we still wouldn't measure up to her in terms of raw ability. Jumping your ass now. And so, the 1-minute climax begins. The girl who exchanges blows with the vampire head-on. The thorn that pricks at him from behind. Careful never to expose his back, the knight twists and turns to keep his 2 opponents within his sight. A ballet of blades, like a symphony played with the most superb of techniques. The whirling guillotine blades, the strike of the knife that slips through the openings they create, the ice spears that plick away each of them at the same time, while also accurately needling at the weaknesses in their coordination. Also, this music is going crazy. I'm not gonna lie, the music goes crazy. Like, I'm locked down the action and shit, but I'm hearing the music, it's going crazy. And like this scenery, like all the blades dancing, like holy shit, this is sick. It may be a hasty arrangement, but we're perfectly in sync. She's moving around so that I can stay in her shadow. I'm shifting my feet around so as to not enter her range of motion. A neck-and-neck battle. The tension is electric and rising. With each passing second, our focus grows more intense. For me to kill an enemy, I have to keep my eyes locked onto them. It's so dazzling. I've never stared so hard at a single death before. As a result, perceive his principle, see a light, something which can never be understood. I see a light, one and not to be possible to perceive with the kind of cognizance that builds theories throughout language and memories. Death is the fundamental basis shared by all of creation. My perception hones in on that focality. They were memories of snow. They were memories of persecution. They were memories of being adrift. They were memories of salvation. They were memories of treason. Altogether a lone night's end. He was falsely accused and forced to leave his country, losing his homeland through political scheming. Exiled to a forgotten corner of the world, to an ice-cold and uninhabitable sea. Cast adrift on his distant sea, he had nothing left but to go on living. Nothing left but the cold. Nothing left but the pain. It was a woman who had run away from both humans and dead apostles, her fellows, who was herself languishing in obscurity, that saved him from crumbling completely. There was a fleeting spring. He loved the flowers that bloomed in the snowfields. He loved the birds, and he sang the death of men. He even acquired 10 wives to console him. The loyalty he held toward his liege was the same as a never-thawing ridge of ice. Yet the pain carved into his soul would not heal. He could not oppose the thirst of the cold. To escape that cold, he abandoned his own knighthood. And though he may have been deceived, he still shut out his soul sunshine with his own 2 hands. Yikes. That's a dark story. Did we get that much info about him in the arc route? I don't remember that, if there was. That is who this man is. That is the vampire who bears the name Vlav. His essence is that of cold and betrayal, of drifting and remorse. Ah, this one I can kill. Once a principle is expressible through words, it comes within human purview. Exult, vampire. For as of this moment, I can completely and utterly kill you. Blood Moon. The inner sea of the planet, the firmament that covers the cosmos, makes a proclamation. A curse upon the ancestors. A curse upon the world of man. The principle has yet to take root. This planet's underpinning is far too brittle. His scorching bloodlust singes my skin. The link my consciousness has formed is severed, and I return to my senses. I hear a voice. I do not even have the strength to look over. This was a huge blunder. I became far too entranced. I'm so starved for oxygen that I feel faint. Not being able to look over at Senpai is the least of my worries. I'm struggling to even perceive the lance that's closing in on me. Suddenly, there are 20 meters separating us. It seems like Senpai grabbed me from behind and yanked me away from Vlav. We are back to square one. I don't have time to stop and catch my breath. Even at this distance, I can feel his bloodlust. Killing me is now the only thought in that vampire's mind.
Senpai, 話してくれ.
I call out to her without turning around. She releases her grip on my waist. Behind me, I hear the sound of something heavy being picked up.
お互い限界ですね。自分の体がどんな状態なのか把握していますか？
はい。もう右腕ぐらいしか上がりません。
The pain in my eyes is indescribable. It's as if balls of fire had been inserted into my eye sockets. At this rate, my brain will shut down from this headache long before I breathe my last.
そうですか。では、まだ信じていいんですね。
もちろん。ここからが本番です。
I think we're about to finish this. I can't help but grin as I nod my head. I feel a slight pang in my chest. In spite of the circumstances, I'm struck once again by how gratifying it is to have someone understand my feelings.
よし行くよ先輩。
任されました。まっすぐにできることだけをしてください。
Let's go. I don't have the strength to take any detours. I start sprinting straight for him, and a fraction of a second later, Senpai follows suit. Ice spears pour down like raindrops. The spears are all aimed at me now. Wav has identified me as the greater threat. But they don't connect. The ear-splitting sound of gunfire rips through the air, and Senpai's bullets turn the ice spears into literal rain. She's not the type to retreat without a reason, and the reason she fell back to that location a moment ago was to retrieve her gun. One more breath. Just one more breath and I'll cut this light. Though, that's obviously nothing more than wishful thinking. He too is putting his entire being on the line. However weakened he may be, his physical abilities are still leagues ahead of mine. Alone, Tono Shiki has no hope of fending off the strike of his lance. That's why I'm risking my life to help her. Which way will the scales tip for him? Will he go for me, running along the ground, or for the executor, covering me from above? After weighing the options for a split second, he grasps that Senpai is the real danger here, that she will be the one to kill him. However, in a complete rejection of his intuition, he chooses me instead, with one creeping across the ground toward him. This isn't a result of him being caught up in his own violent emotions. He has bent the absolute command of his instinct through the sheer force of will. This is not the vampire who was buried under his own persecution complex. This is a knight. Just how much willpower did it take for this man to ignore the true desire of his heart? Petty emotions such as anger cannot command this intensity. It is his pride. It is the obsession on which he pins his entire existence that drove him to choose to kill me. Ah, how beautiful, but how foolish. That's why you came, all alone, to such a foreign country. The inescapable iron arm is swung down. There are no bystanders in this critical moment. She too is fully committed, heart and soul. As if to show me the way, it carves a furrow in the ground and pulverizes half of its body. The tip of his lance wavers from the impact. Mere millimeters of deflection mean that my head remains attached to the rest of my body. A massive ice collides with my left shoulder. I don't care. Powering through the impact of being impaled, I step forward. Got him. Squelch. My knife sinks into the vampire's chest with ease. I fall to the ground and writhe around in excruciating pain. My brain feels like it's on fire. It's as though the tip of the knife had become an extension of my finger. Pain transmitted through the knife I stabbed into that point floods into my body. My head is reeling from the pain, but I vaguely grasp what went wrong. Just now, I looked too deep. Instead of destroying that vampire's vessel, I erased the fire that burned within him. I failed. If I'd been looking at his death instead of at that radiance, I'd have killed him for sure. The vampire has been released from the curse that scorched his body. The man who has returned from being a mere dead apostle brandished his claws. The serpentine sword mows them down. The gigantic telescoping sword latches onto the body of the vampire almost like a literal snake. The sword of judgment makes a whirring noise as it spins. It forms a tornado with the executor at its center, launches the body of the vampire into the sky, and then
命は燃える人だね。知力はもろく知恵すらだけ。慣れたスピードを土の中、あそここそラーだけ。
the iron blade transforms. It reels back, adopts the form of a pile bunker, and intercepts the falling vampire.
待て、その洗礼は
Ooh, nice. Look at that. An inescapable death blow. The impact doesn't just shatter his ribs, it pulverizes his entire torso. Even after taking such a hit, the vampire extends his claws once more.
貴様、そうか、貴様もか。どこまでも小賢しい蛇。死ね、死ね、死ね、死ね。俺はお前たちに倒されるなど。
Up to this point, there wasn't even so much as a trance of the deep-seated hatred that now consumes him.
滅びなさい吸血鬼。花は胸にクレアトゥーラテルシオ。
Get his ass. Boom. That's the last arc if I ever seen it. Or at least an arc drive. I think it was her arc drive. Multi-blood. Yeah, that little thing. His death cry pierces the heavens. There is no forgiveness. There is no compassion. The stake becomes an iron hammer passing judgment upon the sinner, and eliminates all traces of the vampire from this earth. Later, bitch.
なんだ、結局先輩だけでよかったんじゃないか。
I somehow doubt that. As I roll over onto my back, I vent my feelings of both frustration and pride. My heart and lungs cry out in relief. After a long time spent holding my breath, I finally begin breathing again. I can't move my body anymore. I can't even tell whether I'm still gripping my knife. All I can feel for certain is the pain inside my head, and the sense that as soon as I relax, my consciousness will plummet into darkness. I don't feel any pain where the ice pierced my shoulder. I can't sense the bleeding of my mangled limbs either. It's as though I've been put under anesthesia. I somehow managed to put my glasses back on in order to alleviate my headache, but with that, I'm completely and utterly spent.
遠野くん、しっかり生きていますか？
I hear Senpai's voice. I don't want to worry her, so I try to raise her hand to show her that I'm fine, but I can't move even a single finger.
遠野くん、呼吸はしていますね。心臓も動いている。なのに目を覚まさないなんて、もしかして頭が。
いや、その言い方はあんまりな気がします。
It must be because Senpai helped me up. The blood drains from my head, and I'm able to eke out a few words.
よかった。いえ、よくないです。なんかもうボロボロじゃないですか。無謀すぎます。なんだってあんなことをしたんですか？
It's a little late for her to be angry about that now. It seems like she's really flustered. It's a shame that I can't really appreciate it properly with my eyes clouded over like this.
ですね。全くです。先輩の言う通り、無謀でした。本当に、めちゃくちゃ怖かった。
I let out a big sigh.
もう、今頃になってそんなことを言うなんて、困った人ですね。でも、怖かったってどのくらい怖かったんですか？噂に聞いた、遠野くんの妹さんぐらい？
自覚してますからいじめないでください。こんなのは二度とごめんです。 あと子供扱いもやめてください。
I pout in protest, as though playfully apologizing.
はい、強がるところが可愛いです。
She begins to laugh sweetly. The pain in my shoulder shreds my consciousness.
ごめんなさい、今は治療が先でした。肩の傷は骨は折れていませんね。よかった、これなら私でも治療できそうです。他に痛いところはありませんか？はい、トーナくん、もしもし。
As long as Senpai is here beside me, I'm not afraid of anything. Feeling like those words may have slipped out of my mouth, I began to close my eyes. The only thing I can still see is the moon. It calls to mind the face of someone else who helped me but isn't here. Arkwade, what am I going to say when I see her again? Should I complain that she went back on her word, or should I thank her? Either way, just thinking about what kind of face she'll make is, how should I put it?
はい、おやすみなさい、トーノくん。後のことは私に任せて、どうかゆっくり休んでください。
The last thing I hear is the soft lullaby of a whisper. For the first time in 2 days, I fall deeply asleep. Well, that's one problem solved. Spider? What was that? I mean, it was a spider, but what does it mean? Someone else's presence? It's been 2 hours since Vlav Archangel disappeared from the face of the earth. The traffic restrictions and media blackout put in place by the Mobile Engineer Corps are still in effect. It's a cover-up operation that won't even allow any photographic evidence of the cave-in, let alone an investigation. The person in command isn't a police officer, nor are they a member of the self-defense force. Is it Mario? Yep. They're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed foreigner. A boy who, at least based on his appearance, can't be more than 12 years old.
おーおー、やりたい放題ってのはまさにこいつのことだよな。使徒のカタコンベに神祖の空想具現化ときた。日本ってのはアジアが誇る先進国じゃなかったのか？いつから中世の田舎町になりやがった？こんな大騒ぎは13年前のあれ以来じゃねえのか？おい、聞いてんのかアンド。てめえの国の話をしてんだよ俺は。
俺に言われても困りますよ、坊ちゃん。ハイテク国家とか言われてますけど、そんなのもう10年も前の話ですし、技術も人間の程度も伸び悩んでるんすから、この国。愚痴なんじゃなくて、お叱りは所轄の代行者にぶつけてください。
The young man deflects the blonde boy's foul-mouthed question in a practiced manner. Before them lies the crater that had served as a battlefield. If they were to look down, they would see a handful of figures beavering away inside. Some are members of a search and rescue unit dispatched to the disaster site, while others are from the survey team of the local police department. All of them are hard at work dealing with the aftermath of this abnormal disaster, though they've been kept in the dark about the true nature of the accident.
しかし、いいんですか、坊ちゃん。うちの連中使わなくて。あれ、どんだけ観光令引いても漏れちゃいますぜ。
気にすんな。日本人は仕事熱心なんだろう。秘密厳守っていう組織の方針には従わなきゃな。よしんば話が漏れても噂止まりだ。事故現場に死体があるのは不思議じゃねえんだしな。
そりゃ不思議じゃねえですけど、不自然ではありますよ。どこにこんだけの死体があったんだって話ですし。
そりゃお前、 ここで発見された死体は今夜ここにいた哀れな一般人だろうが、発見された死体イコールさっきまで生きていた人間ってのが自然だろ。
マジですか？そんな方便で通るんすか？
そこを通すんだよ。いやー、公園だったのが幸いしたぜ。無関係な人間が山ほどいたことの理由になる。理由さえあればあとは力仕事だわな。何のためにうちのジジイが権力ばらまいてると思ってやがる。抑えるのはトップだけでいいんだよ。下っ端や真ん中が不審がっても関係ねえ。最後にまとめる人間が握りつぶせばそれでおしまいだ。
はあ、そりゃつらい。そっか、そういう風に闇に葬られてきたのか。坊ちゃん、その年でエリートコースまっしぐらっすね。家柄的な話プラス精神的な話で、なんかもっと年相応の遊び心とかないんですか？
あるかんなもん。ガキってのは基本つまらねえもんだって忘れたのか30歳。ほら、無駄話してねえで監督してきやがれ。ヤバめな証拠は隠滅しとけよ。
God, Mario is so vulgar, it's almost hilarious. And I kinda like it, okay.
へーい、上司の命令とあれば喜んで。
あれでもちっと緊張感があれば使えるんだがな。あの捨て鉢さはなんだ。若い頃に挫折でもしたのかカリウス。
私にはとんと安藤の私生活に
I don't think we've seen you much in the arc route. Maybe once in this same scene.
最後の最後で金に目がくらんだ恋人に裏切られ、故郷を追われ、失意の果てに父方の祖国であるこの国に島流しになったということぐらいしか。また先月は金融機関に3万円ほど返済をした後、6万円ほど追加の融資を受けたようです。
十分知ってるじゃねえか。まあ仲がいいのはいいことだ。当面俺の下はお前と安藤だけだからな。チームワーク磨いとけよ。
マーリオ様のご命令とあらば承知いたしました。
おお、仲良くな。んじゃあそろそろ報告でも聞いとくか。あの使えない方の女通していいぜ。
Ah, Noelle. Yeah, I've seen their interactions with each other. Mario fucking hates this bitch. Can't fucking stand her. A woman with a nervous look on her face appears. Executor Noelle. She's one of the few people who knows all the details of what happened here.
本日付で赴任した監督司祭代行マーリオ・ジャッロ・ベスティーノだ。顔合わせは初めてだよな、代行者ノエル。
ベスティーノってラウレンティス枢機卿のですか？
Her surprise is completely understandable. The boy's name is not something that can be taken lightly by members of the church. The Pope is the pinnacle of the Holy Church. Assisting him are 128 cardinals. Even among the cardinals, who are some of the most powerful figures in the church, Laurentis stands head and shoulders above the rest. People say it's all but certain he'll be the next pope, and this young boy is his grandson, Mario. Though that's not to say they're actually related. Cardinals are not permitted to marry. Instead, it's common practice for them to adopt children, raise them, and groom them to be their successors. It isn't a dynastocracy so much as a meritocracy. Only those who hold the strongest faith, deepest knowledge, and firmest morals are chosen to serve as the pillars of the house of God. Except, there's an open secret regarding Cardinal Laurentis. He may have adopted many children and divided his fortune among them, but all of his sons bear an uncanny resemblance to the man himself. The cardinal is a lustful man, a Philistine who rose to the ranks of cardinal off the back of his money and influence. This is the image that many of the faithful have of him. Of course, the presbyters who know Cardinal Laurentis personally are aware of his true nature. He is a man of piety, thoughtfulness, and charisma, all qualities that make him worthy of supporting the church. His one and only flaw is his love of women. Cardinal Laurentis holds Mario, who is ostensibly his grandson in name only, in high regard, and there are whispers that he's likely to come from behind to claim the title of successor. The surname Bestino is Cardinal Laurentis' old family name, a memento from when he was living in the backcountry. It's obvious to any member of the clergy just how high Laurentis' expectations must be for this boy if he bestowed him his surname after denying it to his other 20 adopted sons, to the boy's 20 brothers. This boy is the favorite child of a powerful man, a man who has hidden himself from the public eye to live out his retirement. It's not surprising that a simple executor like Noelle would tremble at the sight of him. And it's also why she's asking herself something. If this boy is a member of the elite whose future would be handed to them on a silver platter in their home country, then why has he come to this island nation all on his own?
でも本当に。
ああ、なんだ、免許証でも見せてほしいのか。てめえ、俺がガキだからって舐めてんのか。
そのことは決して。でも枢機卿のお孫さんにしては若すぎるような。
Uh-oh. He just caught you lacking, didn't he? Said something out of pocket, he finna whoop your ass.
そりゃ若えだろ。ジジイが100歳超えてから愛人に産ませたガキだからな。今年で12だ。恐れ入ったか。しかもまだ弟がいるって話だ。ったく、うちのじい様は吸血鬼以上の絶倫だぜ。マリオ司祭代行。今の発言はただの愚痴だ。聞き流せ。てめえもそこまで信心深いって腹じゃねえだろ。無理してらしい反応してんじゃねえよ。んなことより本題だ、本題。事の始まりには間に合わなかったが、最後の締めだけは見せてもらったぜ。
はい。事の始まりというとどのあたりからでしょうか。
てめえが逃げ出したところからだ。いい判断だったな、代行者ノエル。おかげで命があるわけだ。三流は三流らしく、てめえの命を最優先ってな。逃げ足だけは見どころあるよ、お前。10年近く使い捨ての犬ころやってるやつは筋金入ってやがる。俺が法王庁に帰り次第、てめえはクビだ。修道院送りじゃねえぞ。ギロチン送りの方な。
Does it sound like he's fucking around? Goddamn. It takes her a moment to process that she's suddenly been handed a death sentence. For a few seconds, she is so overwhelmed by terror that she wonders if her heart has stopped.
待ってください。あれには深いわけがありまして。
Desperate, she falls to her knees and tries to explain herself. She had abandoned her partner Ciel and fled. But she didn't just do that to save her own skin. She claims that she only fell back in order to go call for support. That in order to go after the vampire that was her real target, she had no choice but to make a tactical retreat.
ほう、本命ときたか。じゃあ何か、てめえとあの女のコンビの標的は別なわけか。そうなんです。
嘘じゃありません。法王長に問いただしていただいても結構です。司祭代理ならそれぐらいできますよね。
そうでもねえんだよ、間抜け。てめえの相方は埋葬機関だろ。あそこは治外法権だ。ジジイの意向も奴らにだけは届かねえ。てめえらがこの町にいることも今知ったばかりだよ。っていうか、司祭代行なんざただの肩書きだろうが。現場において代行者はその事変が収束するまで独自の権限を認められる。うちの絶対のルールだろ。親の七光に目がくらんでるんじゃねえよ。
じゃあ今のは嘘ですか？
嘘じゃねえさ。偽らざる俺の本心だ。こんなガキの身分じゃそんな権限はないってだけでな。だがまあいい話は聞けたよな。本命ってやつの話を聞かせてもらおうじゃねえか。てめえとあの女、一体いつから潜入調査なんざしてやがった？
Noel realizes that she said too much, but she can't keep hiding it at this point. She fills in the acting privester, who has just flown in from her homeland, on the details of the investigation that she and her partner had conducted over the past month. I think I might know what they're getting at. I think there might be Roa stuff, because, you know, like initially, like they thought Shiki was the next Roa. So yeah, I think it might be something like that, and then like that real target was actually Shiki. I think so. It takes her around 10 minutes to finish her report. Much of it boils down to her insisting that she wasn't the one who instigated the investigation, and that any responsibility for it lies squarely with her partner.
裏付けのない未確認情報を頼りにスコア稼ぎね。つまりはあれだ。てめえらも独断で動いてたわけか。結構。それなら潰し合う必要はねえ。協力し合えそうじゃねえか、代行者ノエル。
司祭代行、それはどういう意味でしょうか？
間抜け、今ので同じ穴の無地なだって分かれよ。俺はお忍び、てめえらは私的な暴走。奴を追っていることを上に知られるのは都合が悪いってことだろ。
お忍び、それじゃあここまでのお咎めもなしということでしょうか？
咎めようがねえな。俺は代行者なんざ見ていないし、そっちも俺の命令は受けていないわけだし、ことが終わるまではそういうことにしておけよ。正直こっちも自由に動かせるのはこの国の権力者だけでな。教会の実動部隊は動かせない。動かすときは最後の一手、決着をつけるタイミングだけだ。なんでそれまで使い勝手のいい駒が欲しかったんだよ。
つまり今だけ私たちは対等ということですか？
ああ、互いに助け合っていこうぜ。とは言ってもことが終われば立場も元通りだ。後々いい生活がしたいってんなら尻でも振りまくるんだな。俺に媚びを売れば売るほどジジイへの覚えも良くなる。てめえ程度の三下には一生に一度あるかないかのチャンスだぜ。
Executors may be granted special authority on the battlefield, but when it comes to social standing within the church, they're at the bottom of the totem pole. In exchange for their privileges and freedoms as soldiers, they give up their chance of ever rising through the ranks. They are disposable goods sent to fight and disappear on the battlefield. To someone like Noelle, the young boy's words are an extraordinary stroke of luck. However, she just can't get herself excited about it. It's an incredible foothold that might set her on the path to promotion, sure, but it's also nothing more than a verbal promise. For one, the boy treats her like shit. The sight of a kid, not even half her age, brandishing his power like that fills her with antipathy. To make matters worse, she already harbors a fundamental hatred for all members of the church, though she herself doesn't realize it. Noelle isn't about to suddenly take a liking to Mario without a heck of a lot of convincing.
なんだ、嬉しくねえのかよ。ここは喜んで俺の靴を舐めるところじゃねえか。メス犬のくせに反応悪いなてめえ。犬っていうより豚だったか。
いえ、そんなことないですよ。降って湧きすぎた幸運に慣れていないだけというかそれより出世の話ならあの子はどうなんです？今でも信じられないけど本当に巣を倒しちゃいましたよね。これであの子の待遇とか上がっちゃうんですか？何しろ初の27層殺しなんですし。
ああ、バカ言ってんじゃねえぞターキー。
Taki.
たとえ国を揺るがすような怪物だろうとな。吸血鬼殺しで役職が上がるかよ。
Noelle timidly asks a question, and is ruthlessly shut down by Mario. Her antipathy for him only strengthens, but at the same time, she also feels relieved. The ancestors are the sovereigns of the dead apostles. To executors, they're the biggest game there is when it comes to heresy hunting. But he said that even if she took one down, her position would not change. However...
だいたい初めての話でもねえしな。
Oh, so she liked that.
はい。
At this, Noelle really does yelp in surprise. The acting prime minister, newly arrived in the Far East, looks down on the crater that had borne witness to the battle.
だから初めてじゃねえんだよ。あの女の27層殺しは。森と城を含めてこれで3体目だ。
Forest and Castle, who are those? Don't believe I'm familiar. With cold eyes, he tells her about the combat record of the executor who had already disappeared. Interesting.
ただいまーす。あれ、下からちらっと見えた可愛いお嬢さんはもうお帰り？
ガリウスに送らせた。今後の打ち合わせもあるからな。埋葬期間の方は話にならねえが、あの女は分かりやすい。人参ぶら下げりゃ死ぬまで走る玉だ。で、そっちはどうだ？
いやー、なんも残っていませんわ。使徒にとっての聖典、吸血鬼の痕跡ってやつ、死体も残ってないですし、あの代行者が回収しちまったみたいですね。
またかよ、あの甘。戦利品はきっちり上納するもんだろうが、組織の上下関係なめてんのか？
いやー、そんなわけのわからないものを押し付けられても困りますけどね。餅は餅や、化け物は化け物殺しにでいいじゃないっすか。
だから化け物殺しが化け物になったら困るんだよ。いい、てめえはしばらくここの監督だ。明日にはこの土地の持ち主様が来るから顔合わせとけ。俺は町の把握がてら神祖の様子を見てくる。定時連絡忘れないようにな。
え、坊ちゃんが直々にそんな地味な肉体労働？俺の仕事ですよそれ。
死ぬほどクソだな安藤。神祖の尾行なんざてめえに任せられるか。一日であの世行きだ。
坊ちゃん、そんなに俺を大切に。
まだ駒の替えがねえからな。死なれたら俺が疲れる。人員が増えたらてめえに任せるから安心しろ。
まあそういう理由っすよね。でも坊ちゃんならうまくいくんですか？基本的に貧弱なただのクソガキですよね、坊ちゃん。
魔術だの秘跡だのに頼らない時点でてめえらよりマシだろうよ。 ヨシンバ見つかってもあれとは顔見知りだ。殺されることはね。
What does that mean? Acquainted with the true ancestor.
ちょ、
Do they know each other?
枢機卿のボンボンが吸血鬼と顔見知りって、それスキャンダルどころの話じゃないですよね。
The young boy walks away, ignoring the man's shouts of surprise. First, he'll investigate the town and prepare for battle. After that, he's going to go and confirm the presence of the beautiful vampiress he crossed paths with many years ago, whose figure is even now fading from his memory. Huh. I did not at all know that they had some sort of relation to one another. That is interesting. Well, I assume more development will be awaiting us.